We're on. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the August edition of the Finance and Infrastructure Standing Committee meeting. Great to have everyone on board to the house today. Welcome again to our live streamers. We have a agenda full of information, not a lot for decision today, but certainly lots of information and detailed updates, so we'll hop straight in it. Everybody is here today, so that's great news. Do we have any apologies? No. None of our observers. Leave of absence is required. Councillor Nixon, did you want to put in the leave of absence for September?
Too early.
Well, we don't meet again until September.
Or finance infrastructure.
What date's that? The 11th, I'll be here.
You'll be here? Yep. Okay. Well, councillors, I might put in a leave of absence for 11th of September.
That's why she was edging.
Yeah, that's all right, because this committee will not meet again.
Oh, I'll be here till the 11th.
Mr Mayor, would you be happy to
Oh, we have to do that, Chair.
chair that? Just put that in there that he's accepted that responsibility. So councillors, I will be going to the International Beef Alliance Conference in Canada, and for me, it's been a tough gig, but looking forward to that. And so that's all on leave of absences. Confirmation of the minutes of the previous meeting. Councillors are there for your approval. Would somebody like to move? Move Councillor Nixon, seconded Councillor Rock. Just run your eyes over those councillors, and if there's anything if everything's all right, then we'll push that. Everyone comfortable? This wasn't a big agenda last time. So if everyone's happy with that, I might, is everyone in favour? Receiving the minutes? Yep, carried, thank you. Business arising from the minutes. You see we had, we received a report in relation to the Australian Airports Association conference, the Emerald Airport Advisory Committee meeting, a number of departmental updates there from the Commercial Services and Finance and Infrastructure team. Anything that anyone would like to revisit? Alright, we'll no business arising. Review of the outstanding meeting actions. There is a 2-page register there. No further updates, I don't think. Would there be on Mr. Houlihan in relation to the airport options?
Not at this point, no, sorry.
We did have a fairly recent update in July. Councillors, any other questions in relation to those? We revisited those things fairly recently. No further questions. I will move on to the rolling reports. They are also there for your perusal. Just a short list, that one. A lot of things been on there since last year. If there's anything anyone wants to add, I don't know if that's the mechanism to do so. All right, well, we'll keep moving. Any petitions, Gerard?
No.
One day there may be, so we do have to ask. Material personal interest, conflict of interest, personal gifts and benefits, anything to do with that. Geez, the way we're going, Susan, will be finished well and truly before those children get here at 10 o'clock. And before Susan retires. So, customer and commercial services, we have Jason Houlihan, who is acting for Michelle Webster. And Jason, I know you're just itching to get into this report and Lots of good news there, so I won't steal your thunder, I'll let you hop into it.
Very good, thank you. And I'll do my best to communicate the report here, and I might call Councillor Rolfe to help me out where it is. So good morning, councillors. The first report here is with regard to the Emerald Sale Yards Coordination Committee. The committee hosted the Emerald Sale Yards stakeholder engagement meeting recently on the 16th of July. There's a lot of the minutes of which are attached. But some of the key discussion points in that meeting were about an update regarding the Sale Yard Stakeholder Engagement Action Plan, the recognition of a number of efficiencies established this year with the installation of the full deck weighbridge and the livestock exchange software upgrade that happened. A discussion around the proposed 18-19 capital project and how they will fit into the operations out there. The funding application seeking 50% funding, which we'll touch on later, and the establishment and completion of all the required governance documentation. As I said, the minutes of that meeting are attached to the agenda there, and also a list of the capital projects that we discussed. So if there are any questions, I'm happy to, or if Councillor Rolfe wants to add anything to that.
Yes, Madam Chair, I will. Just from that stakeholder meeting breakfast we had, just going through the minutes, since there's been a discussion around the software test. We're testing new software at the yards, and which is going really well. And so, but the comment the other day to us was that the overhead screen of results of a weigh are lagging, and that's because it's not connected to the software that they're testing at the moment. So once we get all the software, all the data from the weigh house to the office, which is going well, once we've sorted that and know that we want to use that software, we'll then have to, I suppose, change the technology to the overhead screen for the results of the weighs of lots. But so that's all in process at the moment. Further down, there was quite a lot of discussion about Type 2 road trains from that finish at Clermont at the moment and at Alpha, but the Clermont to Emerald route has been in the pipeline for quite some time now, and everybody will know that there's a great big pad up on Emerald Hill that sort of gave us an indication that they might have been thinking about Type 2 road trains from Clermont through to Emerald, but it's still in the pipeline. It hasn't been allocated as yet, so we're waiting for that one. It would make a really big difference to the use of the Emerald Yards, because they can just unhook and come through the Emerald Yards from the Clermont end. As it is now, a lot of cattle are actually going to Clermont to re-trucked and go north. So it's holding us up, but we have to wait for TMR, I suppose.
So just before you move on, because that brings me to a point I had highlighted. And I know, Meg, as you chaired that meeting, and in relation to the open for discussion, that issue was discussed, and I think it's worth just understanding what the next step could be in terms of the capability statement that you referred to there in the minutes. Like if we were to proceed with developing a capability statement around road train access to the Emerald Sale Yards and what that would mean for Emerald, like where would that be best to sit? Because I know it's not picked up in the action plan. Like we're shown that
Well,
supposed to
we're
mention.
reliant, Mayor, you might fill me in on this, but we're reliant on TMR allocating that road to type 2 road trains.
And just if I could through the mayor, when you're coming from Clermont, you can't get into that pad unless you come down and turn around back onto it. So it really needs another access, not straight from Clermont, so they can just drive straight off. So as it is, they've got to go down, stop all the traffic and turn in. But if they've got type 2, well, they're not going to do it.
Yeah, but even as the mayor said, you know, the planning and developing of an advocate, you know, it's a shame if that's floating around and we're not.
Well, I think, through the chair, I think it was just a case of the representation at the stakeholder meeting included people like Ian Burnett and others. And I think there was just a feeling that, you know, whilst certainly there are other activities, certainly within that group, and Councillor Ross chairing that group, that I suppose you'd say the consistent approach to agriculture and that sort of anomaly with where infrastructure doesn't quite join up to achieve the outcome. Perhaps, you know, an advocacy around, you know, particularly about the SADA, I think would be a good process. And I think Ian Burnett asked the question where we might go. We discussed, and it's not actually just caught there, we actually discussed a group of people actually forming a kind of group. So I think that the group will, I guess, further that action at some point.
Yeah, certainly there was a discussion around it, and I'd imagine through the likes of AgForce and that sort of thing that there will be an advocacy role to bring it forward. But
Yeah.
it's, I mean, all we can keep asking is.
Yeah, but I'm just wondering where the push should come from. Like,
Well, certainly, I think if we, from a capability statement, we can add that what type 2 road, what the extra 2 decks of cattle would mean to the sale yards, we can do that. And, you know, for access to sale yards and access through to, you know, closer to the ways into.
I think Madam Chair, it's extension of, we've got an ag capability that kind of fundamentally now has the database. The next wave, I guess you'd say, of usefulness of that document would be projects that spin off that and start using, you know, we know functionally what amount of cattle sit in the local government area, whether they get sold, whether they move to, I think the agribusiness development coordinator is looking at that sort of role in her next projects about where product and
so it could be something that we could put on the radar within Liz's section. I'm just wondering.
Absolutely.
We can talk about it, but I just and it makes sense what you're saying, but it'd be good that it's at some point it's.
Yes, Madam Chair, it was just a case of identifying that and probably just saying that, you know, the statement is there, and certainly that's the first time in terms of the group and advocacy around that particular part of our business, how we would then actually utilise that. So I think the question was asked, where do we go to next? And I suspect it's not called in the Actions Act, but it would be something that it should be on.
Yeah, that's what it's supposed to be.
Of course, the transporting of drought cattle is in 6 decks through Travers. I would imagine that it's going to happen through Emerald anyway for drought because they get special permits to carry drought cattle. So, you know, it beggars belief that you can put a stop to something that is ready when they get a permit to carry drought cattle. So we'll keep working on it. And I think the only other thing, Madam Chair, is that Michelle Webster has been to the National Sale Yards Conference, but she went from there on leave, so she'll bring a report from the Sale Yards Conference.
Well, that's the Annual Sale Yards Stakeholder Engagement Meeting, which is an annual thing, as I understand. So I guess Jason will move on to the Sale Yards Committee. Salios Coordination Committee, which follows shortly thereafter.
Just find that one, sorry.
Jason, do you want me to, just go on to?
Yes, please.
From the meeting, Andrew has got some interim results there, which are quite pleasing. So cattle numbers, at least, were 102,000 head for the year. However, of course, as all the cattlemen in the room will know, that the value of the sales was down 13% on last year. So that's the nature of the beast, pardon the pun. I think mostly other things are just, the cat works. Jason, have you got the cat works here?
Yes, the cap works is in the department update.
Yeah.
Cover that off.
It's all trucking along pretty well.
Yeah. And I know in the minutes there too that Michelle Webster's been on the board of the Australian Livestock Markets Association for the last couple of years, has chosen not to continue to be on the board. So I'd just like to recognise Michelle's contribution, and I've been talking to another member of that board who said how fabulous Michelle was on there, and they're certainly going to miss her very much. It was a great ambassador for our region, and I understand you filled that role admirably, so thanks to Michelle for that. So any other questions in relation to that particular committee meeting? No, if not, if someone would like to refer to the resolution,
It's on the screen.
okay, so that we receive the minutes of the Emerald Saleyard Stakeholder Engagement Committee and the Emerald Saleyard Stakeholder Engagement Plan and the Coordination Committee meeting minutes. Someone like to move that? Move Councillor Daniels, second Councillor Nixon, all in favour? Unanimous? Excellent. So moving on to departmental updates. Again, Jason, you're so warmed up over there in that seat. We'll throw straight to you for customer and commercial services.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'll take, as Michelle does, I'll take the reports as read and just touch on a few of the high points. With the airport, there's a number of operational activities undertaken for the month. The capital projects, we've got the garden entrance project, which is the airport have partnered with CQ University, some of their ag and landscape design students, in a bit of a competition to come up with a suitable design for the entrance to the airport. It's a little bit of community spirit and to see what they come up with, and a little bit of a competition there. So it's a great initiative. And the other good news is that member for Flynn, Ken O'Dowd, announced on the 10th of July that the Emerald Airport would receive $1.4 million to upgrade the general aviation mitigation project as part of the BBR, so the Building Better Regions Funds grants. So that project has received some funding, so some good news there. There's no questions on airport. I might move on to the quarries. The quarries had a good month. Production up to the 20th of July was about 8,500 tonnes, consisting of road base. The quarry, as of yesterday, wrapped up a campaign crush of quite a considerable amount of material. There's plenty of material there for roadworks and for other external parties that are looking for some material. There's some minor operations in some of the smaller operations such as Mungabunda, and we're also looking at partnering with infrastructure to down Niagara, which is on the Fitzroy Developmental Road. A quarry there that they're looking at doing some work in conjunction with infrastructure. Some of the capital projects there, they're all starting to fire up in terms of delivery and some preliminary works. The electrification of the pub mill, the pre-coating plants are going well, and hopefully we'll meet compliance checks in the near future. And some upgrades to the stormwater runoff, again for a compliance issue there. So quarry operation definitely turned the corner, and there's some good figures being presented from their financials. I'll move on to sale yards. The total number sold at regular auction was 8,587, plus an additional 2,835 head of private way and sale cattle. Further sale scheduled for the 26th of July, with 2,000 heads booked at the time of writing this report. Some of the capital projects, again, they're well underway. Councillor Rolfe mentioned they were discussed at the committee. The replacement of the electrical service pits, scheduled for August, September. An additional double-decker ramp is awaiting some potential funding. There's a few other projects there, but I believe they're all well underway or in the planning stage. Some general manager, customer service and customer and commercial services topics. Michelle has attended some board meetings there with the housing group, attended baking services meeting to discuss baking options in regional communities, which I believe there's some outcomes with that, or looking towards some outcomes for the small communities. And a number of other duties there that Michelle undertook. The Building Our Regions Fund, round 4 funding to the Minister for State Development, Manufacturing, Infrastructure and Planning, announced on the 25th of July that Central Highlands Regional Council was shortlisted for some infrastructure projects. So we were seeking a total of 13.1 million from the $92.3 million funding bucket, and we're successful to get to the next stage for 2 projects, which is the Emerald Airport Terminal Aviation upgrade and the Emerald Sale Yards upgrade. So the requirement of the next stage of that is that we have a business case ready within a short period of time to submit to go to the next round of assessment. So they are ongoing.
Councillor Nixon.
Through the Mayor, just a couple of questions. Where is Niagara Pit?
Niagara Pit is just south of the Barralabar Road on the Fitzroy Developmental Road. So the during of Bohemia road there. It's a TMR, Transport and Main Roads registered pit, which we use to carry out works on the end of their road, or we use it on some of our roads as well. So we're trying to move, I'm speaking on behalf of infrastructure here, but working with the quarry to crush more material on the road, use crushed material, which is a better type of material for the infrastructure department to utilise.
So it's a good pit?
Yes, yeah.
How do you know?
Yep, good history of use from that pit, and yeah, it does produce a good product when it's crushed. We're still working out the actual tonnes, but it will be sufficient for what we've got planned with TMR on Fitzroy Development Road in terms of general resheeting, plus an additional to for cost efficiencies.
Thank you. And the other question was these shortlisted projects, how far down are we getting their business cases? Are we nearly ready with those business cases?
Yeah, yes. Look, there's a meeting on at 10 o'clock this morning to discuss the way forward with that. So they have commenced. It's just a matter of gathering some data this morning. Some of the staff are gathering the data to input that into the business case, so they're well on their way to being done.
And Chair, did we
I think my recollection is that we would need to seek clarification about with general aviation, because we received that done in the federal government, whether state government would go a three-way split. Do you know if we've had any
I don't believe
feedback?
we have yet.
Okay.
Jason, you may or may not be able to answer this question, but in relation to land development, I know Patterson was handling the expression of interest process, which did close, it says here, on the 13th of July for council owned and controlled land. Do you
Yes.
know, did we get much interest and what's that look like?
So look, I couldn't tell you the exact number, ranging, look, I'd say maybe 30-ish applicants for those blocks. So we just started the process of looking at each individual lot who applied for it, going through a process there. So letters were sent out yesterday to everyone who submitted an expression of interest, informing them that we'd received their application, and we're going through the process and we'll contact them shortly once we're done.
So did we have, interest for all of the land that we offered, or?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah, right. Oh, that's good. Yeah. Councillor Ross.
Chair, just to update a bit on the banking services, we've shortlisted and speaking to the proponents still about the banking services in Central and Ralston, so it's progressing at this stage, which is good.
That is good. Excellent. All right.
Can I just ask through the chair, do you want that noted under general business? Or did I miss?
That was just, it was just within the.
It was just in-
this report.
In Michelle's
Activities.
what she's attended.
Yes.
Not point three.
No. There's no further questions in relation to that. Would anyone like to move? We receive Commercial Services Department up-to-date report. Move, councillor Manley, second councillor Bruno Cone, all in favour? Unanimous. Alrighty. Moving on to infrastructure and utilities. Gerard, would you like to introduce?
Madam Chair, councillors, I've got a few updates here, principally to Peter Manning, and then one item for Len Bell that he probably wants to engage with councillors with, and there might be a few questions from Peter, over to you.
So good morning, councillors. Just three quick items in the update for this month. So the first one, we finally turned on the pressure booster pumps in Ralston last month. So far, conflicting as to whether people have noticed the difference.
Yes.
Yep. So we will, we need to go through and do pressure monitoring, at least in the hydrants in the street, to see that we've made a difference in the mains. There are sort of, I guess, some commissioning issues that predominantly pumps at the moment run during the morning peak and the afternoon peak. We have a cut-off flow where they're not running. And a lot of the time the flow is actually below that. So we've got it cutting off at 0.8 litre a second, which is pretty low. And the flow meter probably doesn't turn down much, stops registering a little bit below that. So we're actually considering whether we might replace the flow meter on the control system. But yeah, at the initial settings, we're putting another 15 metres of head on the system, which should have our supply pressures similar to our standard of service in M1.
What was the comment, Chair, the other day about it didn't blow up their pipes, which they're very pleased about.
Yeah,
They did say that they-
which part of town you're in.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Sorry, councillor Rock, but it depends, and that's always been the case with the pressure, as we know in Austin. But yes, people have noticed an improvement. Some people probably haven't noticed a great deal of difference, but those that don't have an awareness of the project certainly.
now I have spoken to the caravan park and the lady there said, well, maybe.
Yeah.
But yes, once we go through and see what the actual mains are giving us, it might be whether the issue is actually with people's internal plumbing as well as just the mains. But yeah, it's a learning process, and we'll.
But you're just easing the pressure into the system by the sound of it. You haven't got to turn right up.
Well, the first day we did, but then I had it turned down. We boosted it by about 300 the first day, and I said, "Oh, that's a bit much."
Yeah. There's opportunity to.
Yeah, so it's adjustable set points, and I went and played instrument tech on Friday and replaced the SCADA modem because we couldn't see it remotely.
So you can see it remotely now.
Yeah, well, we could, but I think we found that the older modems are not coping with the increased data we put through them when we add things onto the system. So we just, Ralston is on our SCADA system, so I can see it from the iPad and I can see it from the office here.
Oh, that's good. Councillor Nixon.
My usual question, Mayor, supply.
I didn't work out the percentage, but there is, we checked it last week, 6.5 metres in the Ralston Dam, which is a reasonably high percentage.
So that's pretty good,
Yeah.
because we've got to go at the end of the year, it's only just August, isn't it? So,
And
yeah,
a
that's-
reasonable amount in the Little Kidney Dam as well.
Yeah. So long as they're keeping an eye on it, and when we were at Springwood the other day, they are taking water, but they're going to the 1 mile hole, aren't they?
Yeah, I don't think, we haven't got anyone taking water from the dam.
So long as they're not going to the town supply,
No, the mine is supplying all the water.
they will be, yeah, they've been getting a bit from 1 mile.
So it's no.
Yeah, they've got the bore down, but yeah.
Ralston's not doing too bad. It's probably better than Devon, unfortunately. But we were lucky enough, we did get some flows and, we were able to pump a couple of times to top it up, so it's been helpful.
Yep, so long as everyone keeps watching that as the dry year goes by.
Yes, no, it is recorded.
Yeah,
I had
okay.
it checked last. Second item is really just an update on last month where I said we had the draft audit of our drinking water quality management plans. It's been finalised and we've submitted it to the regulator. So the next step is to actually do the 2-yearly review of our plans. We had asked, that would have been due by November, but it's the same time that we've been trying to do both sets of annual reporting to the regulator. So we asked for an extension to February-ish, and so far they've said, well, we'll probably give you a year, but we don't want it to take a year because there will be a next year's reporting cycle. So we're still going to aim for the first half of next year for getting that review into the regulator. And the third one is just a quick update on Black Gully. So just going through, we've finally completed the water test on the bioreactor. Mechanical equipment installation is going to start on clarifiers in the next couple of weeks. So as that's going to be something different from the last time the councillors went out and visited, we're aiming to try and do another visit in one of the strategy days, either the end of September or the beginning of October. So that, last time we went, there was a big hole in the ground with concrete, and now I hope there'll be not a big hole in the ground, and there'll be some shiny things and stuff like that.
We hope there's something happening since we were there.
And I guess as I've done in one of the weekly updates, we have applied for an extension to our transitional environmental program for Black Gully, which was turned down by the department. We had a meeting with them last week to go through their reasoning, which I don't think was correct, but from the discussion it's kind of understandable why they made it. They said we didn't meet the dates, and it was a process where we had put in, as we've been asked by somebody else previously, put in your original, put in what you want. But we hadn't put in what the current amendment dates were, so they just compared them to the original rather than the current. So now it's just a process we've lodged. The process you lodge a formal review. Sitting with them last week, we found out that the formal review is not by the people who undertook it. It has to be done by another office and another delegate. So that meant we had to put in a whole lot more background information to bring it up to speed. So we just work through the process and see where that goes, and then once we...
Hopefully that process will take you through to May 2019.
Well, that process takes, I think, that's one of the standard, maybe 20 business days. And then after that, we've discussed, we'll meet with the delegate for here and work out, well, if it's approved, and if it's not, we'll work out what the process is from there, which is, we've demonstrated we're spending lots of money, we are building things, we haven't stopped, we're working ahead, so.
Yeah, that's right.
Is that it, Peter?
That's me.
The water team.
Over to you.
Good morning all. I suppose with regards to this, it is really bringing forward that we've got hazard mitigation activities that have either been undertaken or planned to be undertaken throughout the region. I put through a very descriptive email to the executive management team to ensure that council's responsibility is undertaken for fire mitigation activities, and in particular our own infrastructure. We have a lot of infrastructure out there. I don't have to say it, dry. It's a pretty ordinary season. It's not looking real good coming up. We need to make sure that we do what we need to do now to protect our infrastructure and our properties. The other issue related to it is council owns and is responsible for a significant amount of land parcels, whether they're reserves or given to us by state or whatever it happens to be. We still need to manage those. Now, I know that we've got an adjustment situation happening at the moment, trying to adjust a few of those out. That's fine. I'll work with those areas to make sure that we've looked after them. One of the big areas that I've got is that due to quite a significant changeover of staff in the ranger and compliance area and so forth, it's been quite difficult to get clarity on who is responsible for authority to burn council land, etc., etc. I met with the CEO this morning and I've just received delegated authority at this stage for this period to try and streamline what needs to happen. There's been a little bit of debate over the stock routes, and I can certainly understand that. The stock routes I will be managing very, very carefully on behalf of the council and those that may use it. If there is any burning on stock route, it will be a very small section to try and take a small section out and get it to cure up and green up for next year and ensure there's still feed there for whoever is using the stock routes. That is the challenge.
Might I say, Madam Chair, that this is another reason why we should have rural services meetings at least once or twice a year, to actually get people together to talk about all the things that you're talking about, Glenn. There's, you drive down the highways now and you see fire tracks on the outside of the fence, outside of boundary fences. That's apparently a no-no, but who knows? You need collaboration with your communication with the people that are allowing stock to come onto our stock routes. We've got over 4,000 head on our stock route at the moment in a 150k stock route. Not good enough. So these sort of things, I understand your concern about fire mitigation, but we can't be having fires on the stock routes because there's cattle on there.
No, I will explain that. My major priority is community safety, so I look at the urban and I-zone areas, that's the interface between rural and urban. I certainly do not look at the stock routes themselves. That is managed by the Ranger Services, and that's rightly should be. It's really where I look at our infrastructure and our community safety areas is where I will concentrate my efforts. And that keeps me busy enough. I mean, if you look at the burns, we finished Thierry, we've done some here, I'm trying to get Dingo Bluff done now. I'm just streamlining Rolleston at the moment. I understand that went in some time ago, but there's been a holder. And I requested yesterday for Springsure to have theirs streamlined and put cool. That's the first I'd actually heard. So what I have asked is a two-stager. One is, for this season, we need to get some community safety work done, and that is on the critical areas only. What we need to do as a council, and I certainly have put requests through for the next period of time, is to sit down as a management team and look at fire management or fire mitigation activities in general for council. So that is, who is responsible, where are they responsible, who has delegated authority, who looks after writing the letters for either council land that they want to burn or burning within an urban environment, which is an environmental law. And I'm not an expert in those either, I can tell you. It's a challenge. So I have requested that Scott look at that and through the executive leadership team before we get into the next fire season, we sit down, look at policies, procedures and protocols for the use of fire mitigation as a tool into the future. For this year, it's too late.
Yeah, just through the chair, I think Willows a couple of weeks ago, and they are concerned up there as well.
Yes.
They have got substantial breaks and mitigation.
I'll look at the Willows one. I did understand the last meeting I had was in July with the Willows. They were comfortable at that stage, so that may have changed. They haven't got back to me. One of the areas that I do have to bring up, and I'm not sure what the timing is, but when we talk about the Gemfields, the Gemfields is a unique case. It is quite unique. We're having a big challenge there. And I will say openly that I believe Queensland Fire and Emergency Services have dropped the ball on this. They are the responsible agency for fire safety, and they have not been following through on what they should have been doing. I'm very, very sour on it at the moment. But in reward, we have a challenging case where we have mining leases in there, and we have then a pastoral lease that sits over the top of that. The pastoral lease owner currently sits at the top tier and is responsible for fire mitigation activities, but refuses to do fire breaks, etc., because then the miners come in, use it as a road and pitch another tent. So we have a real difficulty there in managing community safety versus leaseholder responsibility. Now that's outside the scope of what I do, but it's certainly a challenge that I'm working with the Department of Mines, etc., to try and resolve. But I have extreme concerns on some of those areas that we have people in areas that have not had mitigation works done. So that's just to explain some of the complexities that are there.
Chair, just a question about the neighbourhood safer places.
Yes.
Glenn, great idea. How do we start that process, or is it through our LDMG?
Can be passed through the LDMG. It's actually the responsibility of the Queensland Fire and Emergency Services Rural Division to inspect them every year and ensure that they are still safe and registered as neighbourhood safer places. We only have one. That is one in Sapphire at this stage. And the reason for that is most of the neighbourhood safer places have to be a maintained area. It's not a matter of just picking a spot. It means that it has to be fully maintained. That means it's mowed, it's looked after, etc., so that they are confident when they go to a neighbourhood safer place that there is no chance of anything coming into it if we settle it. So, look, I think that's where we need to be going for the future in a number of areas. There is the opportunity in a number of our smaller communities to identify sporting grounds, etc., that are maintained and register those as neighbourhood safer places.
Thanks, Glenn. And I mean, it's the stock routes, I think the drovers are doing a great job.
Well, it's the best thing we can do.
Yeah.
Stock on fire mitigation is the best thing you can do. The challenge for me is understanding what routes are being used and what aren't. For example, I have the beef road there is not used anymore. It is just not used anymore. So I've got a request to do 40 kilometres of fibre through there. But the challenge for me is understanding Is it used, is it not used, is it planned to be used in the future? What infrastructure is in there in the way of watering points, etc., etc. So it's a little bit complex each time we get one of these that comes in to look at it. What I aim to do is try and streamline it this year, and look, I can't guarantee that I won't burn a little section that says, oh, shouldn't burn that. It's as simple as that. I've got a very short window at this moment to finish some of this off. It probably should have been done weeks ago. Somehow it's been held up.
No, I understand the challenges there, Glenn, and thanks for bringing that report to us. And ultimately, we want our communities to be safe. And the outlook, I was recently this morning just listening to the weather forecast for the next season, the summer season, and it's not looking too great at all. So, we can just expect continued dry conditions and possibly some extreme storms and, events that bring lightning and that sort of stuff that poses a bit of risk to us. So, I appreciate that, and if there's anything you need us to do in relation to some of those more challenging communities.
Probably just a good one for you, as I have been challenged in the past on how we might be able to do fire mitigation ourselves on our own properties with our own staffing. I had an offer there last week to fully train up and qualify any of our council staff that may want to into fire mitigation activities without having to join a brigade.
Yeah.
So that's something we'll look at. It's too late for this year, but something that we can look at our protocols and planning for next year.
No, very good, Glenn. Thank you. Thank you. And thank you, Peter Manning. That is all. And then we've got the closed session item, but we have a resolution there. And that is that we receive the Infrastructure and Utilities Department update. Outlining a few highlights for actions for the month of July. Move Councillor Brinkman, second Councillor Daniels, all in favour? It's unanimous, thank you. Council's general business before we go into closed session. Do we have any general business?
Yes, Madam Chair, I've just been to last week the LGAQ Roads and Transport Advisory Group. There's a bit of paperwork here if anybody wants to read through it.
Could you just give us the executive summary?
Yeah, executive summary.
Highlights.
I only got the highlights. Mostly it was about the heavy vehicle work program, and onto the National Freight and Supply Chain Priorities, which is a federal government report due out for, well, they're saying that the National Action Plan's not until May 19, so it's a work in progress still. And the Roads and Transport Alliance Memorandum of, it's not understanding, it's an MOA, is due for renewal in another 5 years, so that'll be done at the LGAQ conference in October. Then we talked about a lot about the kids programs, the state government funding, and how it is to be acquitted every year, and it's an ongoing issue for the kids funding to be acquitted each year, fully funded, and discussion about how to actually do the works program so that it is acquitted in 12 months. But everybody seems to have the same issues about weather interfering with it, and acquittal's not being done until the end of May and June and this sort of thing. So it's one of those things that we just have to keep plugging away at, I suppose, about how we get it done. There's also quite a bit about the Queensland government is really keen on the cycling advisory group committee. And there's funds for more cycling, routes and tracks around Queensland. The minister is very keen on cycling, obviously.
Do you know what he said they want to start a like an LGNQ cycling advisory committee?
Yes, there's a Queensland Cycling Advisory Committee.
It's not LGNQ.
It's not LGAQ, no, but it's Queensland one. But, there is funds there for cycling tracks, which I think we need to,
Make sure the lines pay.
well, it is, that's right, that's the sort of stuff that we asked for, we talked about a walking track, but it's really a cycling track.
And soon make it one anyway.
Absolutely. Mostly, that was about it. It's people from, the advisory group has members from across Queensland, so we get, quite a bit of conversation about the different areas of what roads mean to, roads are important to everybody, but, how they approach their programs in different areas, which is quite interesting as well, so. Yeah.
Very good. Well, thank you for that update. Councillor Daniels.
Through the chair, Councillor Roth, is the topic of QTRIP funding for outback or for all councils come up in conversation? I mean, TIDS we know is a guaranteed bucket of money, but there's been quite a bit of movement in local government circles about the sustainability of the QTRIP funding for outback councils.
Yeah, QTRIP funding this year is very much eastern coastal councils. Comes out, there's a bit of QTRIP funding on capital, but it's between here and, it's definitely east of here, so I don't think there's any QTRIP funding for anything west of Edmonds throughout the whole state.
But I mean, is that advisory, what's LGAQ and the advisory committee's position? Did they formulate one or?
Well, absolutely, we need to advocate for, more funding, I suppose, further for Western Shire. But you've still got to consider that Western areas and Western RRPGs have got the perennial problem of lack of workers, people, contractors and people to do the work. So they get through their kids funding, and then if they don't know that they're going to have to get funding, people don't live out there because they can't work.
No continuity of work.
Yeah, absolutely. So, this is the sort of stuff that we talk about, and advocate for, but it's just seems to be falling on deaf ears at the moment. So.
Councillor Daniels, did you have
Yes, through the chair, to Gerard and Jason. A group of us associations who put up from Mary Carroll was saying, she was mentioning her concern around the signage, the state of the directional signage on our main roads, and I just wanted to find out, I know we've run out of TMR's funding to council has been used up before, but what was discussed yesterday was really about a joint approach to agitate. I know we that way, Gerard, to try and get funding for a replacement of those signs. So I was just wondering, can we access that information, that audit?
That's an open question.
haven't we got an LGAQ motion?
We've got an LGAQ motion as well, but just like in terms of the audit, have we completed our?
So we completed what the funding allowed. So that was mostly major highways. I think that's minutes from the last Senate committee, the roads we did cover. So that information has been provided back to TMR now, and for them to interpolate that data and decide where, if there is any funding, where it would be prioritised.
Okay.
There's no indication at all yet that there is funding to actually replace
As you say, councillor, there's a bit more agitation on this subject because the Capricorn Highway, I reckon, is a disgrace. It is the worst. Some of the signs you can't even read. And I mean, if you're a tourist and you try to look at the ground signs there, they're probably worse, but even around Dingo, the green ones are just unbelievable.
Yeah.
So I know that there is an LGAQ motion that's constructed, but perhaps that would be a nice appendix to that motion.
Yes, if we under,
Or reference.
I'll take a look at it and decide how we can use it to our advantage, but we have to be cautious. Effectively, we were contractors dealing with the TMI, so it's not a common information.
We can't use it against them.
So yes, I'll be a bit hesitant. My governance manager, the governance manager wasn't out there to hear that, but anyways, we'll see how we can best use it if we can.
yeah, okay, wonderful.
Thank you. Councillor.
Yeah, sorry, there has been in progress, KPMG/AEC review of the grants process and funding within Queensland Government. The review's not been released from government as yet. However, we did have a discussion about it, and one of the things that struck me was that there's over 9% spent in administration costs of grants. So I think we need to have a real think about what it's costing to administer all these buckets of money, when if it's costing 9% out of government and then it comes to local government, and what do we spend as well on administration of grants funds, and especially when local governments have to actually do application submissions for grants every time. I mean, apart from the TIDs, you basically have to, apply for funding, which is such a cost. So it'll be interesting to see what comes out of this report, because there's a lot of,
As you say, the more hands it puts
That's
through
the ground.
yeah, absolutely, it just has to be.
And that's one of the reasons why the federal road to recovery funding is to release directly to local government, because of the fact that money comes straight in as with fags,
Yeah.
be directly expended. If it went through state government, we would be 9% less resource before we even see the money. So that was a great initiative by the federal government. I think this report with state government effectively is pointing out their weakness in having multiple funding programs. I think Frankie Carroll, DG Frankie Carroll, when was sort of was promoting this working idea that they only have one long funding source and not multiple to try and reduce that cost. But yeah, whether that report's going to ever be released, I'm not sure whether
Councillor, just one other thing I wanted to mention. This is Susan Cooper's last finance administration standing committee, and she's laughing. Because she has been a wonderful member of this finance and infrastructure standing committee team, and she's in fact the rock that keeps everything tied together, and we never forget anything with Susan here. She's whispering, "You've got to do that," but no, Susan, it's been a real pleasure having you part of this committee, and we wish you all the very best in your retirement, and thank you for your hard work and dedication. And we welcome Lisa into the team, and know that that she'll teach you all the tricks well and you'll leave before she leaves. But I think the last day's Friday, everything, yeah. So we hope you're not a stranger. Like if you get at a loose end, live streamers, just come and fill the gallery yourself. You'll be welcome back here at any time. Get in and get out real quick. So, but no, thank you once again, and we really appreciate everything you've done for us, and we wish you all the very best on your chapter. Thanks, Joe. And on that note, would somebody like to move that we go into closed session? Move Councillor Daniels, second move Councillor Rock, all in favour? Done. Unanimous.